Hey.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome back, Misfits, and welcome back to a new episode. Today, we're continuing the conversation about the Bible's greatest hits.
Yes.
And we're talking about Noah's Ark.
Noah's Ark.
Yes, we are. So, the story of Noah's Ark takes place in Genesis 6 through 9. To start, we're going to give you some backstory so you understand why the Ark was being built. So, Genesis 6 starts out telling us the humans were operating out of their fleshly desires and God wasn't putting up with it anymore.
Right.
Yeah. And we're quoting from the Bible, and the Bible says, "The Lord observed the extent of human wickedness on the earth, and he saw that everything they thought or imagined was consistently and totally evil. So the Lord was sorry he had ever made them and put them on the earth. It broke his heart. And the Lord said, I will wipe this human race I have created from the face of the earth. Yes, I will destroy every living thing, all the people, the large animals, the small animals that scurry along the ground, and even the birds of the sky. I am sorry I ever made them. But Noah found favor with the Lord." That's such a hard verse.
It is.
But
there's like that hope at the end.
Yes, exactly. But Noah found favor with the Lord.
Yeah.
So enter Noah. The Bible tells us that Noah was a righteous man, the only blameless person living on earth at the time, and he walked in close fellowship with God. Noah was the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Another baby name.
So those are the 3 sons. And so God tells Noah that he decided to destroy all living creatures because people have filled the earth with violence. So he tells Noah he's going to wipe them all out along with the earth.
Yeah, a little reset.
Yeah, God, he wasn't playing.
No.
He wasn't playing. He's like, this is what I'm going to do, and you're the only one that I like right now, so I'm telling you.
So do what I say.
Yeah. So God begins to give Noah the instructions to build the ark, which of course will spare you the details, but if you'd like to read them, they're in Genesis 6. It's very specific, so we're not really trying to do that right now.
Yeah.
Anywho, God is very specific and gives him all the instructions and says he is going to cover the earth with a flood that will destroy every living thing that breathes, but I will confirm my covenant with you. So enter the boat, you and your wife, your sons and their wives. Bring a pair of every kind of animal, a male and a female, into the boat with you to keep them alive during the flood. So God promises to keep Noah and his family safe because he was righteous and blameless, and we of course mentioned that before. So a teaching moment here is that this is an example for you listening to this, you person right now listening to this, as head of your family or as a parent in general. You can stand in the gap for your family. Like Noah in this scenario, your righteousness can save multiple generations, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Like the fact that Noah was a blameless man, but God was like, okay, you get in the boat and then take your whole family with you. That's
Right.
crazy. Like he covered them all.
Right. So that's a blessing in itself.
Definitely. So after God gives him the information about the ark, God tells him specifically what kind of animals to put in the boat. And the Bible says that Noah did everything exactly as God had commanded him. So just to recap real quick, God gives him the information. He tells him, he's like, yo, this is what we're going to do. And then he gives him the instructions about the boat, the ship, whatever you want to call it. Then he tells him what animals to put in there. He tells him it's going to be you and your family.
It's all very detailed,
Yes,
very specific,
it's very specific
of all the things, both in like size, measurements, and then like who's actually allowed on. So like everything was very specific during this time. Yeah.
Definitely. So now, when the flood was about to start, God says to Noah, "Go into the boat with all your family, for among all the people of the earth, I can see that you alone are righteous. Take with you 7 pairs, male and female, of each animal I have approved for eating and for sacrifice, and take a pair of each of the others. Also take 7 pairs of every kind of bird. There must be a male and a female in each pair to ensure that all life will survive on the earth after the flood." Because, reproduction.
Right.
7 days from now, I will make the rains pour down on the earth, and it will rain for 40 days and 40 nights until I have wiped from the earth all the living things I have created. So at this point in the story, the Bible tells us that Noah was 600 years old, which, wow, right? He goes into the boat with the whole fam, and after 7 days, it started to rain and water covered the whole earth, which prompts us to ask, did they get in the boat and spend 7 days in there and then the flood started?
It's not as clear because it tells them in 7 days it'll start raining.
Right.
But it doesn't say if they got in the boat then or the 7 days after. But it's funny, I was actually reading through this, and it made me think that he probably had them go in before,
right,
and wait the 7 days. Because it's like one of those moments, like, you have to trust me.
Yes.
And you don't have to wait until the rain starts falling to be like, oh, let me run to the boat.
That's
you know
good.
what I mean?
Like I told you it was going to happen, so go ahead and do it and be obedient.
Yeah.
Regardless
it's gonna
if there's rain or not.
Yeah, it's going to rain in 7 days. I'm telling you to go in now. You're going to have to wait. It's going to feel like, is this even real? But like, have faith. Like, have patience. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because, if they had waited, like, they might have missed the boat, literally.
Literally, yeah. That's good. That was good. So another really cool thing that the Bible tells us is that Noah, his family, and the animals went into the ark, and God closed the door behind them. As if this story wasn't, like, amazing enough. Like, they went into the story and God closed the door. Like, that's crazy.
So, again, had they waited to, like, hey, we're going to wait till it actually starts raining to hop on in there, the door would have been closed.
Yeah.
They wouldn't
like,
have
only
made it
the animals would have been saved.
Yeah.
Like,
and Noah in there would be like,
yeah.
Hello.
Well,
I'm in here.
What do we do now?
Yep.
So they got in the boat, God closed the door, and the Bible tells us that it rained, as God said, for 40 days and 40 nights. Mm-hmm. And with that, for 155 days, water covered the earth. And of course, everything and everyone on the earth died except Noah and his family and all that were on board. So Noah, his family, and all the animals.
Right.
But God remembered Noah, of course, right? After he had given him the instructions, God did not forget about Noah because he doesn't forget about any of us. Right. The Bible says, God sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the flood waters began to recede. The underground waters stopped flowing, and the torrential rains from the sky were stopped. So the flood waters gradually receded from the earth. After 150 days, exactly 5 months from the time the flood began, the boat came to rest on the mountains of Ararat.
Ararat. Say that
Ararat.
5 times.
That is Ararat. For there's somebody out there that wanted to know. And of course, we're gonna get teachy in this moment. And for those that are interested, we looked up where this mountain of Ararat is, or where these mountains are, and they're somewhere in Turkey. So
somewhere on the
he landed somewhere in Turkey. So the ark was on this mountain, and after another 40 days, so the waters were receding, the boat lands on the mountain, but after another 40 days had passed, there's a whole situation with a raven, and basically Noah releases a raven and a dove from the boat. He does this multiple times until the doves come back to the ark with a fresh olive leaf, which tells us the waters had receded and were almost gone. He releases the dove again, and the dove doesn't come back, which just literally tells us that the water was fully gone and the dove had somewhere to land and stay.
Yeah, like now he has somewhere to live
besides
the boat.
Right. So it was just a sign like, okay, it's safe to come out.
Right.
And at this point, the homie Noah was 601 years old.
Yeah, they had been on the boat for almost a year, I think, at this point. So.
Yeah, it's like
he had
his birthday on the boat. Exactly. It's that he had a birthday cruise.
Yeah. I hope they had candles. Okay.
I hope the captain came in saying happy birthday to him.
All the animals sang along.
Oh my gosh. So the Bible tells us on the first day of the new year, 10.5 months after the flood began, the flood waters had almost dried up from the earth. Noah lifted back the covering of the boat and saw that the surface of the ground was drying. 2 more months went by, and at last the earth was dry.
So it was like legit a year.
Yeah.
It was like 10.5 and then another 2 months. So yeah. They waited a whole year after it had rained, or when it started raining, to be off the boat.
Yes. Really that was a very long time spent in a boat with a lot of smelly animals.
And smelly people?
Yes. Smelly animals, smelly people. There was a lot of water, so they probably had buckets. And
I hope they were able to just like reach out the window or something and be like.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but that was a very long time.
Yeah. No.
So then God tells Noah to leave the boat, which is so interesting because it's not like Noah saw, like the dove never came back and he just bounced out the boat.
No, he waited.
Yes, God tells Noah to leave the boat and release the animals so they could be fruitful and multiply, which, if you remember a couple of weeks ago when we talked about Adam and Eve, that's what he said to them too in the Garden of Eden, once he had given them dominion over the garden. So note that between Adam and Noah, it had been 9 generations. So 9 generations of people, but God gave them the same instructions, like be fruitful and multiply.
Because of the situation of the earth. It's kind of like a rebirth.
It was a reset.
Yeah, it was a reset.
Yeah.
And so kind of giving the same instruction to Noah now.
Yeah. Which is so good. Like, you know, when you read the Bible and then you see something in Genesis and then you see something, you're like, oh my, it ties together. This is great.
It's I understand. Same God doing the same great thing.
Same God doing the same thing.
Yeah. Okay, so then they get out of the boat. Again, all the animals are free. And then Noah builds an altar to the Lord, which is where he makes them sacrifice. And so the Bible says that the Lord was pleased with the aroma of the sacrifice and said to himself, I will never again curse the ground because of the human race. even though everything they think or imagine is bent toward evil from childhood. I will never again destroy all living things. As long as the earth remains, there will be planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night. Then God blesses Noah and his sons, tell them to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. So again, he kind of reiterates the same thing, like go and be fruitful. He tells them that he's placed all the animals in his power and has given them for food, or they must never eat the meat that still has lifeblood in it. So very similar to what he had given Adam in the beginning. God also says, I will require the blood of anyone who takes another person's life. So again, this is, to me, it's like kind of the beginning of when he starts kind of giving his instruction of how humanity needs to be.
You're the only humans here. Let me give you these instructions now because I don't want no problems.
And, you know, kind of like what happened before.
Yes.
We don't want to get in that kind of situation as before because, you know, let's not get murdery like Cain. You know, let's not kill each other.
Let's not do that.
So then God confirms the covenant with Noah and his sons, saying, I hereby confirm my covenant with you and your descendants and with all the animals that were on the boat with you. Yes, I am confirming my covenant with you. Never again will floodwaters kill all living creatures. Never again will a flood destroy the earth. And like we've never seen that happen again. Like in history and all our lives, like there have been a lot of crazy weather stuff, but God's promise has remained. Like the earth has not been, you know, flooded or flooded, but like where people, like everyone, or wiped out.
Yeah, the earth hasn't been decimated.
There you go. Like the earth is still here.
Yes.
So God says, as a sign of the covenant with you and with all living creatures to come, I have placed my rainbow in the clouds. So he's saying this is a sign of my covenant, the rainbow in the clouds. It is a sign of my covenant with you and with all the earth. When I send clouds over the earth, the rainbow will appear in the clouds. And I will remember my covenant with you and with all living creatures. Never again will the floodwaters destroy all life, which is what I was trying to say. When I see the rainbow in the clouds, I will remember the eternal covenant between God and every living creature on earth. So this is just another promise that God has made to us, humanity, that, you know, when God established a rainbow, it was his sign of that covenant, of that promise.
Which is awesome, because if you didn't know what rainbows, what their purpose was and what they actually are, that's what it is.
Yeah. So from that moment on, it was like, yes, it's still going to rain. Yes, you might still get storms and flooding, but just know that that rainbow means it's not going to flood to where you're going to be wiped out.
Yeah, it's a God sign.
It's a big God sign. Very thankful for that. And that's it. That's the story of Noah's Ark. The story, of course, continues on about what they did after the Ark. But basically what we talked about today is literally like what happened in building the Ark and then what happened on it and then right after. And so as far as the Ark is concerned, this is where it ends. And then everything else, of course, continues on land and goes on and follows their life a little bit more. But a little fun fact about Noah, though, he did live to be 950 years old. So like an additional almost 350
some years. That's crazy.
And so it's in the Bible if you want to check. Yes. But just so you know, it's still in that Genesis area. So if you want to just check that he really was 950. Yeah, he really was.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to me what 950 looked like back then. Like, is it like 95 or is it legit like super frail man?
Like what does it look like?
Yeah,
that's an interesting question. Yeah,
because there's several people who it talks about there were hundreds. So I'm very curious, but that's something for another. I just came to my mind and I was like,
I think there's another part in the Bible where it says like God says that at some point like humans aren't going to live over 100 years old or something like that. And
you start seeing that more where they like die at 100, die at 90, you know.
Right.
So, but it's interesting to kind of think about like
what
how,
was 950
what was 600-year-old Noah? Like what did he look like? What did 950-year-old Noah look like versus like what we know humanity now?
Something that came to mind for me was like, what did they do with the ark? Like, did they cut it in pieces and use the wood for fire, or like
build houses?
There's like this massive, like, that's a good one. Maybe they did build houses with it.
I mean,
I don't know, but there's just like, I just imagine them like,
because it was such a huge
it says something
boat.
about how Noah planted a garden and a vineyard and all these things, but I just imagine him doing that and then this massive Titanic ship behind him, and it's just like, what are you gonna do with it?
It was his house.
Yeah, like what happens now? Do you just live in there?
All the rooms for the animals were now their rooms.
Yeah, I don't.
For
I
all
don't
the grandkids, I don't know.
That
just seems insane.
Yeah,
because it was a huge boat, so like you don't need all that room anyway. So. I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah. The Bible didn't Didn't answer that question.
Apparently,
for us.
it's not important because it's not in the Bible. But
yeah, like the ark served its purpose, and we're like, we're moving on.
Yeah, we're moving past that.
And we curious minds are like, but the boat. Yeah, what happened to all that huge boat?
Yeah, where did you put it?
Where'd you put it?
Where did you park it? But anyway, yeah, Noah is an amazing story, an amazing picture of obedience.
Yes, definitely.
And you can just imagine like God giving Noah the instructions to build this boat, and it hadn't started raining, and people are probably like, Noah, what are you doing?
Yeah, and not even realizing like something like this could happen. So just the trust.
Because at this point, like, haven't we heard that at this point maybe it had never rained?
Yeah, like that's a
theory,
or an idea, because you know, it's God and he had created everything, and maybe it hadn't rained, or if it had rained, it was never a flood.
Right.
So people weren't even familiar with what that even means. Right. You know.
So like, why are you doing this? So, and you can just see like his conviction and his obedience to God, and his alliance with God, and he's like, he told me to do this. I don't know, but he told me to do this. And you can see his righteousness, and I think the most beautiful picture, other than his obedience, of course, and then God's faithfulness with Noah because he was a righteous man.
Right.
The fact that Noah's righteousness covered his entire family, and his entire family was saved. Even his daughters-in-law, who had no business, like,
they weren't
why
even
was
nothing,
you saved? No, like, he saved his entire family. And, you know, also, like, saved the nice little animals because God told him to.
Yeah. And I mean, even looking at it as a wider, like, because of his obedience, like, God made a promise for that not to happen again.
Yes.
Because imagine how many times
us also
God would have been like, y'all screwing up again.
Here we go.
I can tell you one thing, like, right now, things are looking kind of crazy, you know? So
it would be real floody. If it wasn't for Noah, it would be
good
real
opportunity
right
to be like, let me pick another Noah, because we need to build another ark. Yep. And God's like, I'm only doing this once, because I'm going to bring you a redeemer anyway. So that's another story. But yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Like, that with him, with his obedience, generations, like including us, are now blessed that we don't have to be wiped out by a flood.
Yes. Hashtag thank you, Noah.
Yes. Hashtag no floods.
All right. So we hope you enjoyed that episode. We hope you learned something about Noah's story that you maybe didn't know before. And let's all be obedient, folks.
Yeah.
Let's try. Let's do our best.
Let's do our best. Yeah.
Yep. All right. As always, this is Fran.
This is Yadi.
We are the Midtown Misfits, and we will see you next week.
Peace.
Bye.